My fiancée said she had outgrown me right after I funded her boutique. Now her self-made store pays me every month and she is begging to reconcile. Sup, Reddit. So I funded my girl's dream just to watch her act like I was the deadweight. She went from, let's build an empire to, you're not on my vibration level in 6 months. So I did what any reasonable man would do. I opened Excel and ended her arc with a spreadsheet. Buckle up, boy. I, 28 male, met my fiancée, 25 female Daisy 4 years ago, during my final year of business school. I was working part-time at this coffee shop near campus to supplement my student loans. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills. She'd come in 3 nights a week with these massive art history textbooks, sticky notes poking out from every direction. Always ordered the same tea. Nursed it for hours. You know, refills are free, right? I finally said one night after watching her make the same cup last 4 hours. She looked up, surprised someone was talking to her. Really? Even for tea? That's how it started. Simple as that. I wasn't looking for anything serious at the time. My focus was on finishing my degree and landing a decent job. Dating was somewhere on page 3 of my priority list. But there was something about her, not just the looks, though she was attractive in that no-makeup, academia girl way, but how her face would light up when she talked about Renaissance art or some obscure painter I'd never heard of. She had passion, and it was contagious. Our first date wasn't even supposed to be a date. She asked if I wanted to check out this gallery opening downtown after my shift. I figured why not? Beats going home to my roommate's gaming marathon. Turned out the gallery was featuring some avant-garde exhibit with installations made entirely of recycled plastic. Not exactly my thing, but watching her analyze each piece, explaining the symbolism and technique, I was fascinated. Not by the art, but by her. After graduation, I landed a decent gig at a financial consulting firm. The pay was good, but the hours were brutal. 60 to 70-hour weeks weren't uncommon. Meanwhile, Daisy was grinding through her master's in art history. She was smart as hell, but struggling to find her path. We moved in together after about 18 months. Nothing fancy. A 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, splitting the rent 60-40 since I was making more. I handled utilities. She covered groceries. Simple, practical arrangement that worked for both of us. She had this dream of opening a boutique that combined vintage clothing with local art pieces. Imagine a space where fashion meets gallery culture, she'd say, eyes lighting up. But it remained just talk. She was working part-time at a museum gift shop, making barely enough to cover her half of the rent. Most nights, she'd spread her sketches across our dining table, floor plans, merchandise displays, marketing concepts. She'd created a detailed business plan, researched suppliers, and projected costs. It wasn't just some pipe dream. She'd done her homework. The problem is startup capital, she'd say, frustration edging her voice. No bank will take me seriously without collateral or business history. She wasn't wrong. The numbers were solid, but traditional lenders aren't exactly lining up to fund first-time entrepreneurs with art degrees. We got engaged on our 3rd anniversary. It was on a weekend trip to the mountains where I proposed at sunset. The ring wasn't massive, but it was quality. I'd saved for months. She cried when I asked, said it was perfect. That night, she couldn't stop looking at her hand, the way the diamond caught the light. I can't wait to build our life together, she said. I thought we were on the same page. About 6 months into our engagement, my grandmother passed away. We weren't super close, but she left me about $78,000 after taxes. Not life-changing money, but nothing to sneeze at either. I was planning to invest most of it, maybe use some for our wedding fund. But Daisy had been talking more and more about her boutique concept. She'd created mood boards, researched locations, even drafted a basic business plan. I could see how much it meant to her. What if we used some of the inheritance to launch your boutique? I suggested one night. Her head snapped up. Are you serious? Why not? You've got the vision, you just need capital. I've run the numbers. Your business plan is solid. I wasn't just being nice. Her plan actually made sense. She'd identified a genuine gap in the local market. The location she had in mind was in an area undergoing revitalization, currently affordable but trending upward. Her projections were conservative rather than overly optimistic, which I appreciated. She'd even factored in 6 months of operating at a loss before breaking even. But that's your inheritance, she protested. You were going to invest it. This would be an investment. In us. In our future. We spent the next few weeks refining her business plan. I introduced her to a buddy from business school who specialized in retail startups, and he offered some solid tweaks to her model. We researched suppliers, negotiated with vendors, and developed a realistic timeline for launch. Found a small storefront in an up-and-coming neighborhood with reasonable rent. I fronted $62,000 total. First, last month's rent, renovations, inventory purchases, website development, branding, marketing materials, everything. The space needed work, but nothing structural. New paint, updated lighting, some custom shelving. I handled the contractor negotiations while Daisy focused on merchandise selection and store layout. We complemented each other well. Her creative vision, my practical execution. We drew up a simple agreement detailing my investment and expected returns, making me a silent partner in the business. Nothing fancy, but legally binding. My name was on the lease, the invoices, the business registration. Not because I didn't trust her, but because it was smart business. This feels like overkill, she said, as we signed the partnership agreement. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, I replied. If everything goes according to plan, this document just collects dust in a drawer. I didn't know then how crucial that piece of paper would become. The day we got the keys to the storefront, she was ecstatic. I can't believe this is happening, she kept saying, spinning around in the empty space. I thought we were building our future together. That was 8 months ago. The change wasn't overnight. It started around the time Daisy's cousin Brielle moved to town. Brielle was something else. One of those people who discovered social justice vocabulary without absorbing any of the actual empathy or nuance. Everything was problematic, or toxic, or gaslighting. She used words like patriarchy, the way most people use punctuation. Within 20 minutes of meeting her, I knew I was in for a ride. So you're funding her business? Brielle asked during our first dinner together, eyebrow raised like I'd admitted to something shameful. We're building it together, I corrected. She said, exchanging a look with Daisy I couldn't quite read. Just make sure you're not unintentionally creating a power imbalance in your relationship paradigm. I nearly choked on my water. Relationship paradigm? Who talks like that? We're good, Daisy said quickly. Blake's super supportive. Support is the bare minimum, cousin, Brielle replied. Men have been controlling women through financial dependence for centuries. Just saying. I let it slide. Everyone's got that one relative, right? But Brielle was around a lot after that, helping with the boutique setup, offering creative direction, which mostly consisted of suggesting we paint everything millennial pink and put inspirational quotes on the walls. She and Daisy started spending more and more time together. We really should have an empowerment corner, Brielle suggested one day while we were arranging shelving. A space where women can feel seen in their journey. What does that even mean? I asked. It means merchandising with intention, Blake, she replied, like she was explaining gravity to a toddler. Creating a safe space for marginalized communities to express themselves through consumer choices. So, selling clothes with slogans? Brielle sighed dramatically. This is why male energy can be so limiting in creative spaces. Daisy, who once would have rolled her eyes at this nonsense, nodded thoughtfully. She's got a point, Blake. We should be more intentional about our brand messaging. That was the first red flag. Daisy using we, but meaning her and Brielle, not her and me. Brielle's influence became more evident by the day. She'd pop by the apartment uninvited, always with some new opportunity for Daisy. A networking event, a brand collaboration, a women in business seminar that cost $499 for a day of listening to Instagram influencers share their journey. It's an investment in my growth, Daisy would say, when I questioned the value. Brielle had a way of making everything sound like a revolution rather than what it was. Usually an overpriced scam targeting aspiring female entrepreneurs. She'd use phrases like financial abundance mindset and manifesting your business goddess with a straight face. You need to surround yourself with high-vibration individuals who uplift your feminine essence, she told Daisy over brunch one Sunday. I was sitting right there. Some people's energy just holds you back from your full potential. She glanced at me while saying this. Subtle. Have you thought about creating affirmation cards to sell at the register? She continued. Something like, I deserve wealth because my womb wisdom demands it? I waited for Daisy to laugh. She didn't. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started taking notes. And things started to change. The boutique, which we'd named Retro Perspective, Daisy's idea, which I thought was clever, opened to decent success. Not overnight riches, but steady growth. Daisy had a good eye for merchandise and a natural way with customers. I kept my day job, but helped with the books on weekends, troubleshooted the website, and managed the taxes. Behind-the-scenes stuff that kept the business running. About 3 months in, Daisy started changing. Small things at first. She created a separate Instagram for the boutique that quickly became more about her than the merchandise. Lots of carefully posed photos, professional lighting, captions about manifesting abundance and female entrepreneurship. She started dressing differently. Not bad, just different, more curated. Everything had to match the boutique's aesthetic. Started wearing these chunky statement earrings she'd rolled her eyes at 6 months earlier. Her phone was constantly pinging with notifications. When I asked, she'd say, just networking or building the brand. Started using words like collaborate and content creation in everyday conversation. Our mutual friends noticed it too. Is Daisy okay? My buddy Drew asked during a poker night. She seems different. She's just busy with the boutique, I said, not wanting to admit anything was wrong. Yeah, we see that on Instagram, his wife Jen replied, exchanging a look with him. Like, constantly. I shrugged it off, but it kept building. Soon Daisy was hanging out with a new crowd. Other small business owners and influencers who all seemed to share the same aesthetic and vocabulary. Girls who called each other boss babe, unironically, and posted about elevating their personal brand. One night, I came home to find Daisy filming herself unpacking new inventory, narrating each item like she was hosting a TV show. Today, we're unboxing our new ethical linen collection, sourced from empowered female artisans. You know, I interrupted when she finally finished, those empowered artisans are actually a supplier you found on Alibaba. The minimum wage in that region is like $3 a day. She glared at me. You're ruining my content. I'm stating a fact, I countered. If you're going to market something as ethical, it should actually be ethical. It's aspirational messaging, she replied, using air quotes. Brielle says consumers respond to narrative more than facts. That's literally false advertising. God, why are you always trying to mansplain my business to me? I stared at her, genuinely confused. Mansplain? Daisy, we built this together. Since when is offering input mansplaining? She rolled her eyes. You wouldn't get it. Brielle says men typically center themselves in women's success stories because they're socialized to take credit for everything. That was when I realized I was arguing with Brielle by proxy. Daisy was just repeating phrases she'd heard, not expressing her own thoughts. Brielle was always there on the sidelines, encouraging this transformation. You're finally vibrating at your authentic frequency, she'd tell Daisy. Whatever the hell that meant. Meanwhile, I was becoming increasingly irrelevant. Daisy stopped asking for my input on business decisions, started scheduling creative meetings when she knew I'd be at work, began referring to retro perspective as my boutique instead of our boutique in conversations. The business itself was showing concerning signs. Daisy, under Brielle's guidance, had begun shifting inventory toward items with inspirational slogans and higher markups, rather than the quality vintage pieces that had initially attracted customers. Sales were inconsistent, big spikes when she'd post something that gained traction, followed by days of virtually nothing. We need to focus on consistent daily revenue, not just social media wins, I suggested after reviewing the monthly numbers. The vintage denim is still our highest margin category. Maybe feature that more prominently? That's so outdated thinking, Daisy replied dismissively. Brielle's friend Monica made 6 figures in passive income just from her Instagram engagement. Monica sells weight loss tea and butt-lifting leggings, I pointed out. That's not exactly our target market. You just don't understand modern marketing, she said with an eye roll. It's all about personal brand development now. The boutique was gradually transforming from a curated vintage art concept into what looked like every other Instagram bait shop. Neon signs with generic inspirational quotes, overpriced candles with names like Feminist Rage and Patriarchy Tears, and racks of wholesale items marked up 400% because they had empowering slogans screen printed on them. Customers noticed too. Reviews mentioned the shifting focus, with several longtime patrons expressing disappointment at the new direction. Daisy dismissed them as negative energy. A local women's business collective had approached us about a potential partnership. They wanted to feature some of our vintage pieces in their upcoming networking event. It was good exposure, aligned with our original concept, and would introduce the boutique to exactly the kind of customers we were targeting. I turned them down, Daisy announced casually over dinner. What? Why? That was a perfect opportunity, she shrugged. Brielle looked into their founder, and apparently she once liked a tweet that was problematic about cultural appropriation in fashion. We can't align our brand with that kind of toxicity. Did you at least verify this before turning down a valuable partnership? I don't need to verify someone's lived experience, Blake, she replied coldly. Brielle's intuition about people is usually spot on. I was losing her, not just romantically, but as a business partner with common sense. I confronted her about it one night. I feel like you're cutting me out, I said, of the business and us. You're being paranoid, she replied, barely looking up from her phone. I'm just growing the brand. It's marketing, Blake. You wouldn't understand the creative side. I let it go, but I should have seen what was coming. It was a Tuesday evening when everything imploded. I came home from work to find Daisy sitting at our kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. She'd been at a networking brunch with Brielle and their new crowd. "We need to talk," she said, finally looking up. Those 4 words that never precede anything good. She'd taken off the engagement ring. It sat on the table between us like a dead canary in a coal mine. "I think I've outgrown this relationship," she continued, her voice oddly rehearsed. "I'm in a different place now, vibrating at a higher frequency. I need someone who matches my energy, who understands my journey." I stared at her, trying to recognize the woman I'd asked to marry me. "What are you talking about?" I finally managed. "Is this about the boutique? Because if you're feeling—" "Not everything is about the boutique, Blake," she cut me off. "This is about emotional growth. You wouldn't get it." "Try me," I said, my voice hardening. She sighed like I was a child, struggling with basic math. "I need to align myself with someone who's at my level, someone who understands ambition and vision. You're just comfortable, and I'm not meant for comfortable." "Comfortable," I repeated. "You mean the comfort of me bankrolling your entire business? That kind of comfortable?" "See? This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said, tossing her hands up. "You always reduce everything to financials. There's more to life than spreadsheets, Blake. There's also more to life than Instagram filters and buzzwords, but here we are." She stood up. "Brielle was right about you. You're threatened by strong women." I almost laughed. "Brielle? The girl who calls herself a feminist while sponging off her parents at 32? That's who you're taking life advice from now?" "At least she supports my dreams instead of trying to control them with money," Daisy shot back. "Control them? I funded them. And you've never let me forget it," she said, grabbing her purse. "I'm staying at Brielle's for a while. I need space to recenter my energy." "What about the ring?" I asked, nodding at the diamond still sitting on the table. She paused, then shrugged. "Keep it. It was never really my style anyway." And with that, she walked out. I sat there for a long time, staring at the ring. This wasn't just about our relationship ending. People break up all the time. This was about watching someone I loved transform into someone I barely recognized, someone who could rewrite our entire history together to fit a narrative that made her the hero and me the villain. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Drew. "Just saw Daisy's Instagram story. You okay, man?" I hadn't checked social media. Opened Instagram to find Daisy had already posted a selfie of her looking wistfully out Brielle's apartment window, captioned, "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what no longer serves your highest purpose. Self-love. New beginnings." Brielle had commented, "So proud of you for choosing yourself, Queen. Men will always try to clip your wings when you're ready to soar." 27 people had liked it already, including several of our mutual friends. I closed the app and poured myself some water. This was going to get messy. The next morning, my phone blew up with notifications. Daisy had posted a series of Instagram stories and a grid post that made my blood boil. The caption read, "Leveling up means letting go. So grateful for this journey of self-discovery and entrepreneurship. Built this business from nothing but a dream and determination. No one believed in me, but here I am. Proof that women don't need a man to succeed. Self-made. Yacker boss babe. Trust the process." The photos showed her in the boutique, artfully arranged among merchandise, looking wistfully out the front window like she was posing for a magazine spread. Comments poured in. "So proud of you, girl. This is what independence looks like." "Yes, queen. Know your worth," Brielle had commented too. "This is what happens when you stop letting toxic masculinity limit your potential." I stared at my phone in disbelief. What does that even mean? Self-made? I'd written the checks for every single item in that store. I tried calling Daisy. No answer. Sent a text asking what the hell was going on. No response. Over the next few days, it got worse. More posts, more stories, all implying she'd built this business through sheer force of will. Vague references to overcoming obstacles and breaking free from negativity. Never mentioning me by name, but the implication was clear. I'd been holding her back. Then a mutual friend, Nate, sent me screenshots from a private Instagram story Daisy had posted, one I'd been deliberately excluded from seeing. "Reminder that financial abuse is still abuse," the text overlay read. "Just because it doesn't leave bruises doesn't mean it isn't violence. So thankful to be reclaiming my power." Nate's message read, "Dude, what the actual hell? This is crazy. You need to see what she's saying about you." He followed with screenshots from a group chat where Daisy and Brielle were actively discussing me. Brielle had written, "Classic narcissist playbook. He funded the business to keep you dependent on him. Financial prison is still prison. Daisy had replied with a series of clapping emojis. Another message from Daisy read, "He literally tried to veto my business decisions because he knew better. Told me I was making poor choices because I was following my intuition instead of his precious spreadsheets." The conversation continued with Brielle suggesting Daisy should consider speaking with an advocate because what I had done sounds like it could qualify as economic abuse. Nate added, "Just so you know, I called BS on this. Told them I've known you for years, and this doesn't sound anything like you. They removed me from the chat after that. Then the mutual friends started acting weird. Some stopped responding to my texts. Others sent awkward, hang-in-there messages without specifics. A couple flat out asked if what Daisy was saying was true. What exactly is she saying?" I asked Drew over drinks, the only friend who'd agreed to meet face to face. He looked uncomfortable. "Dude, it's messed up. She's telling people you were financially controlling, that you tried to take credit for her business ideas, that you got jealous of her success and threatened to pull funding if she didn't stay in her place. Some real toxic boyfriend stuff." I set my drink down carefully, trying to stay calm. "And people believe this?" "Some do," he admitted. "You know how it is. Everyone loves a good villain, and Brielle's been backing her up, adding all kinds of details." "Like what?" "Like you made her ask permission to spend her own money, that you sabotaged business connections because you were insecure. That kind of thing." "That's literally the opposite of what happened," I said, genuinely baffled. "I encouraged her to pursue business connections. I fronted the capital so she could make her dream happen." "I know, man. But look at it from outside. She's posting all this empowerment stuff daily, building this narrative. You're saying nothing. In the social media court of public opinion, silence looks like guilt. I'd been silent, thinking this would blow over. Clearly, that strategy wasn't working. Time to change that." Meanwhile, my phone was buzzing with an incoming call from an unknown number. I excused myself and answered it. "Blake? This is Robert, Daisy's father." That was unexpected. I'd always gotten along well with Daisy's parents. They were pragmatic, down-to-earth people who seemed nothing like their daughter. "I owe you an apology," he continued, his voice heavy. "I've seen what Daisy's been posting, and I know it's not true. We raised her better than this." "I appreciate that, Robert," I said, surprised by the call. "Her mother and I were devastated. Not just about the breakup, but about how she's behaving. You were the best thing that ever happened to her, and I'm just ashamed." "You don't need to apologize for her," I told him. "Maybe not, but someone should. She refuses to listen to us. Says we're trapped in outdated relationship paradigms, whatever that means." Brielle has filled her head with nonsense. We talked for a few more minutes. He sounded genuinely distraught, caught between defending his daughter and acknowledging her terrible behavior. "Just one thing," he said before hanging up. "Her mother wanted me to tell you. She hopes you'll block Daisy on everything. For everyone's sake. This situation is only going to get worse before it gets better." He wasn't wrong. That night, I pulled out everything. Business registration documents, bank statements, invoices for inventory, the lease agreement, the contractor bills for renovations, the canceled checks, the original partnership agreement we'd signed, all with my name, all with my signature, all paid from my accounts. I called a lawyer the next morning. "You're in a better position than most," he told me after reviewing the documents. "Your name is on nearly everything. The business registration lists you as a partner. The lease has you as the primary. She can't just cut you out because the relationship ended." "What are my options?" I asked. "Several," he said. "We could force a sale and split the assets. You could buy her out. She could buy you out. Though given the circumstances, that seems unlikely. Or you could assert your rights as a partner and take control of operations." I thought about it. "Let's start with a letter. Formal, legal, outlining my rights and investments. See how she responds." The lawyer nodded. "Sometimes that's all it takes." It wasn't. Daisy responded through her own lawyer. Some guy Brielle knew who specialized in feminist jurisprudence, whatever the hell that meant. His letter basically accused me of trying to steal a woman's business and implied I was using patriarchal financial systems to control Daisy. My lawyer actually laughed when he read it. "This isn't a legal argument," he said. "This is a Twitter thread." We escalated. Formal complaint. Detailed documentation of my investment. Request for injunctive relief to prevent her from making business decisions without my consent. Meanwhile, Daisy's social media campaign continued. The boutique's Instagram became a daily chronicle of female empowerment platitudes and vague references to men who can't handle strong women. Brielle featured heavily, always in the comments validating Daisy's truth. But I noticed something interesting. While the online support remained strong, the boutique itself was suffering. Sales were down. Inventory wasn't moving. The books, which I still had access to via the cloud accounting software, showed mounting expenses and dwindling income. The worst part was watching the poor business decisions in real time. Daisy had ordered a huge shipment of graphic tees with slogans like "The future is female" and "Smash the patriarchy." Expensive custom merchandise that wasn't selling. Meanwhile, the vintage denim that had been a reliable seller was being pushed to the back of the store to make room for the empowerment section. She'd hired a social media consultant, another friend of Brielle's, at $75 an hour to boost their online presence. But the uptick in likes and comments wasn't translating to actual sales. The consultant had also convinced her to invest in an elaborate photo shoot for their spring collection, which cost nearly $3,000 but generated exactly zero additional revenue. A quick analysis of the point-of-sale data showed their customer retention rate was plummeting. People weren't coming back after their first visit anymore. The reviews told the story. Customers complained about being lectured on feminism while trying to shop, or feeling pressured to take Instagram photos with merchandise instead of actually buying it. One particularly damning review read, "Went in looking for vintage jeans, got trapped in a 20-minute conversation about decolonizing my fashion choices instead. Just sell clothes, please." Turns out running a business was harder when you actually had to run the business instead of just posting about it. 2 months into this standoff, my lawyer called with news. "She wants to meet," he said. "No lawyers, just you two. Says she wants to resolve this amicably." I was skeptical but agreed. We met at a neutral coffee shop across town. Daisy looked different. The carefully curated aesthetic was still there, but fraying at the edges. Darker circles under her eyes, hair not quite as perfect. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sliding into the booth. "What do you want, Daisy?" She took a deep breath. "The boutique is struggling. I need more capital." I stared at her, waiting for more. "I thought maybe you'd be willing to invest again," she continued. "For old time's sake." I couldn't help it. I laughed, right in her face. "So after everything you've said about me online, after trying to erase my contribution and turning our friends against me, you want more money? I'm impressed. People say things when they're hurt," she mumbled. "It wasn't personal." "Wasn't personal? You've been dragging my reputation through the mud for months." "That's just social media," she shrugged. "It's not real." "Tell that to my parents, who've been getting concerned calls. Or my boss, who pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay at home. It felt pretty real to us." She looked down. "I'm sorry if that happened, but I need help. The boutique is everything to me." "Funny, I thought I was everything to you once." "Things change." "What do you want?" she asked finally. "To shut it down? To ruin something I've worked so hard for? You mean something I paid for that you've been pretending you built yourself?" She had no answer for that. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, leaning forward. "You have two options. One, we list the business for sale, pay off any remaining debts, and split whatever's left based on our partnership agreement, which heavily favors me since I put up all the capital. Or two, you publicly set the record straight about who funded this business. You buy out my share over time with interest, and you stop dragging my name through the mud." "I can't afford to buy you out," she admitted. "Then I guess it's option one." She looked panicked. "You'd really shut it down? After everything?" "After everything?" I laughed again. "Yes, Daisy. Especially after everything." The next day, Daisy's entire social media presence went quiet. No posts, no stories, no comments. Radio silence. 3 days later, the boutique's Instagram posted a simple black square with white text. "Statement from Retro Perspective. In the interest of transparency, I need to clarify some previous statements. This business was made possible through significant investment from my former partner, Blake. Claims suggesting I built this alone were incorrect and misleading. I apologize for any misconceptions. It wasn't exactly a full confession, but it was something." I later found out my lawyer had helped draft it as part of our settlement. The terms were straightforward. The boutique would continue operating. Daisy would remain as the face and day-to-day manager. I would maintain 51% ownership, but stay behind the scenes. She would make monthly payments to buy out my share over 5 years with interest. And she would stop all negative references to me, direct or implied. The comments on that post were fascinating. Confusion, questions, some support, but mostly awkward silence. Brielle, notably, didn't comment at all. In fact, Brielle had her own problems. Someone, not me, had compiled screenshots of her most problematic social media takes over the years. Racist, hot takes, culturally appropriative Halloween costumes, tweets mocking survivors of various tragedies. The standard influencer cancellation package. It circulated widely in their social circle, effectively puncturing her self-appointed position as arbiter of wokeness. I later found out it was Nate who had put together the Brielle expose. That girl had it coming, he told me over lunch. She's been playing social justice warrior while having some of the most toxic takes I've ever seen. The hypocrisy was too much. The collection included gems like Brielle mocking indigenous practices while wearing a headdress at Coachella, tweets joking about serious mental health conditions, and a particularly damning blog post where she'd written that poor people just need to manifest wealth consciousness, all while living rent-free in her parents' downtown condo. The final blow was a series of DMS between Brielle and a follower who'd questioned one of her takes on feminism. Brielle had responded with a tirade of insults, culminating with, maybe if you spent less time criticizing successful women and more time working on yourself, you wouldn't be so broke and bitter. Not exactly the solidarity sister she pretended to be. The fallout was swift. Brielle's carefully curated image as a progressive thought leader crumbled overnight. The very community she'd been preaching to turned on her with the same ruthless cancel culture she'd wielded against others. Her follower count plummeted, and several brand partnerships she'd been bragging about suddenly went in a different direction. She blocked Daisy almost immediately, thrown under the bus at the first sign of trouble. Shocker. Drew sent me screenshots of a group chat where people were discussing the situation. Someone had asked if Brielle was still working with Daisy at the boutique. Brielle's response was ice cold. I don't associate with businesses built on dishonesty. I was misled about the nature of Retro Perspectives funding and cannot in good conscience continue that relationship. Just like that, she'd rewritten history again. Now she was the victim who'd been deceived by Daisy, not the architect of the whole mess. The guy Daisy had been seeing on the side, some trust fund art collector she'd met through the boutique, ghosted her once he realized she wasn't the independent business mogul she'd presented herself as. Turns out he'd been looking for a power couple situation, not a bailout opportunity. One of our mutual friends, Freya, reached out to me about a month after everything went down. I owe you an apology, she said over coffee. I believed her version without ever asking for yours. That wasn't fair. What changed your mind? I asked. I saw her in action at a networking event last week, Freya explained. She was telling some new guy about how she started her business from nothing but a dream and determination. Almost word for word what she posted online. When someone mentioned your name, she acted like you were just some ex who tried to take credit for her success after the fact. I knew that wasn't true. I remember when you guys were planning it together. Freya wasn't the only one. Gradually, friends who'd gone silent started reaching back out. Some apologized, others just resumed contact like nothing had happened. I didn't hold grudges. Most people just avoid drama by instinct. With Brielle gone and the boyfriend vanished, Daisy's carefully constructed new life crumbled. Most of the boss babe crowd moved on to the next inspirational story. She was old news. Last I heard, she was staying on some photographer's couch, still managing the boutique, but with considerably less social media fanfare. There was a certain satisfaction in watching the boutique gradually return to its original concept. The empowerment corner disappeared. The vintage pieces migrated back to the front displays. Sales slowly recovered as she refocused on the business, rather than the performance of running a business. I ran into her parents at a restaurant downtown about 6 months after everything went down. Her mother hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry about all of this, she said. We raised her better, I swear. It's not your fault, I assured her. How is she doing? I asked, more out of politeness than genuine concern. Humbled, her mother replied. Finally, she's back in reality now that cousin has moved on to her next victim. They asked about me, my work, if I was seeing anyone new. Normal, polite conversation that carefully avoided the elephant in the room, that their daughter had tried to erase me from a business I'd funded and smeared my reputation in the process. As for me, I took the monthly payments and channeled them directly into a small business investment fund for actual self-made entrepreneurs. Created an anonymous scholarship specifically for business students focusing on retail innovation. The boutique itself is doing okay now. Better since Daisy started focusing on, actually running it instead of just posting about it. I stay completely hands-off. My lawyer handles any necessary communication. One particularly satisfying moment came about 8 months after our split. I was having lunch with a colleague when his partner joined us, a woman who ran a small business incubator for the local university. Blake's got a good eye for viable business concepts, my colleague told her. You should pick his brain sometime. Actually, we're looking for mentors for our new cohort, she replied, handing me her card. People with real-world experience funding and launching successful retail concepts. Would you be interested? I agreed to meet with some of her students. Never mentioned Daisy or Retro Perspective during the sessions, just shared practical advice on business fundamentals, avoiding social media vanity metrics, and the importance of substance over style. The kind of advice Daisy had once valued before Instagram likes became her measure of success. The engagement ring sits in my safe deposit box, not as a memento, but as a reminder. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. I've moved on. Got a promotion at work. Started dating someone who understands the difference between being supportive and being a wallet. Someone who values building something together, rather than just looking the part. Last I heard through the grapevine, Daisy was trying to sell some of the boutique's excess inventory on Craigslist to cover operating expenses. The latest shipment of The Future is Female tote bags hadn't exactly flown off the shelves. Turns out customers care more about quality and value than performative feminism. Who would have thought? She still posts occasionally about being a female entrepreneur, but the engagement is a fraction of what it once was. The algorithm is merciless. When you stop providing drama, people stop paying attention. Her stories now feature actual merchandise instead of inspirational quotes and filtered selfies. Progress, I guess. The whole experience taught me an expensive but valuable lesson. There's a big difference between investing in someone's dream and funding someone's delusion. I just wish I'd known which one I was dealing with before I wrote those checks. But hey, at least I kept the receipts.